Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots. Look like yourself, outside search spies and fast minions. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about the Ukraine again. So this is my third video on the situation in the Ukraine, but I couldn't resist with this new story that has broken with the tape released of Victoria Nuland, the Assistant Secretary of the State for European Affairs for the United States State Department, and Jeffrey Pyatt, the ambassador to the Ukraine. And, of course, the tape is hilarious right off the start, and is notorious for the fact that Victoria Nuland says, fuck the EU when discussing this situation that's unfolding in Ukraine. And the United States hypocritically, of course, scolding the EU for either not doing enough or doing too much in Ukraine, and then scolding Russia for any possible interventions in Ukraine. And now we have this tape which confirms that the U.S. Somehow through certain channels has influenced the situation in Ukraine to the point where they're actually picking out members of a possible new Ukraine government. And so this is pretty embarrassing. And I think it's embarrassing on a number of levels, but the fact that they're picking out specific opposition leaders and are grooming for a new government says that they are operating in the channels I've mentioned earlier. They're working with non-government agencies and different elements throughout the Ukraine. They build up a grassroots network, funneling U.S. funds into these groups and giving them support. And this has been going on at least since the last Orange Revolution there in Ukraine. And it's just another indicator that everybody likes to point all these fingers, but as I point out all along, and everyone else has pointed out all along, everybody has their fingers in this cookie jar. And we have Mr. Pyatt also saying on this tape, quote, if it does gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to torpedo it, unquote. So this reveals the true nature of the behind-the-scenes diplomacy, both within the United States State Department and the fact that they know their counterparts are doing the exact same thing in Russia and in the EU. And so they're saying that if this Ukraine opposition movement continues, then the Russians will be behind the scenes trying to torpedo any U.S. efforts to move the Ukraine towards the Eurozones again. And then it's funny because, of course, we have U.S. diplomats being spied on, and there's a suspicion that these tapes were captured by the Russians and released to embarrass the U.S., which it has done. And once again, the irony, what can the United States say when the last year has been full of nothing but revelations of the NSA and the United States spying on everybody else on the planet? So, and what this also proves is that Jeffrey Pyatt, of course, the ambassador to the Ukraine, it shows that the ambassador is involved with meddling in the internal affairs of Ukraine. He's supposed to be a diplomat, and yet he's involved in the subterfuge going on in the Ukraine, and this once again upholds the idea that a lot of U.S. embassies around the globe serve as hubs for espionage, which is an unfortunate affair, but I'm sure most countries do exactly the same thing. And then, like I say, we have the Assistant Secretary of State for European Affairs basically saying, fuck the EU, and she's going to look out for the United States interests. And another aspect of the story that's interesting is we have an activist, Dmitro Balatu, who was taken out into the woods and severely beaten. And he says they were obviously professionals. And he speculates that they are Russians, and certainly that is a possibility. So here we have some potential evidence of how the Russians meddle in Ukraine and how they get things done. But I would suggest that this shows the tactics in general. This is the grassroots level of how tactics in the field goes if you want to have some influence on the internal affairs, say, within the Ukraine. So both the Russians and different elements inside the Ukraine, and the United States will be using money and influence in Ukraine to have agent provocateurs and thugs and people like this who go out and just intimidate leaders of groups and different demographics across the Ukraine for whatever agendas they have. And he also says that he was, quote, forced to say he was an American spy working for the CIA and had bribed locals to create disorder, unquote. So once again, that reveals the tactics that are used on the ground, using bribes for locals to create disorder or intimidate people. And also we see this this other method being used where so the Russians are basically torturing an activist, trying to get him to admit he's an American spy so they can undermine the American efforts there by saying, look, we caught an obvious spy, and you guys are the ones that are screwing around in the Ukraine. So so this is how it works in the real world, and this is what's going on in the Ukraine right now. And then we also have a struggle going on between the wealthy, the oligarchs in the Ukraine. And I'm going to do a separate video on that, but I wanted to comment on this tape because it verifies what we've been seeing all along, and it'll be interesting to see what more comes out, if any more of these tapes come out, and also how this will affect things in Ukraine as they continue to unfold. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.